So I realized I forgot a few important issues in making the original anti-social media video. So I figured I'd just do a quick epilogue to bring a couple more things up. Because I'm a 32-year-old boomer, I don't actually use Instagram or really understand its subculture. Here's basically what I know about it. It's a social media network where you post pictures and people can comment on them. That's about it. It differs from Facebook in that it's centered around pictures specifically, while Facebook is more of a general grab bag of whatever life stuff its users want to share. But since Instagram is based out of the same 300 square mile area of Southern California that all the other social media networks are, it's safe to say that it wallows in the same subculture, suffers the same ethical problems, and attempts to export the same values out to the rest of the world. The most blatant example of conservative censorship on Instagram that I can personally find is documented in this article on the Daily Wire. Instagram censors conservative columnists for saying Planned Parenthood kills more blacks than the KKK. Conservative columnist Ryan Baumberger, a black man who was adopted after being conceived in rape, dared to speak the truth about Planned Parenthood and abortion in general. It kills more black people than the KKK ever did. For that, Instagram censored him. Now, this article is going to open up an entire can of worms that I'd rather really avoid. I did a video on abortion already if you want to go back and watch that. But for the here and now, I can kind of see his point of view. If you believe that abortion is murder and that fetuses are full human beings, then it makes sense to believe that abortion clinics routinely carry out murder. Certainly on a scale greater than the KKK, especially since the KKK has always been on the fringes of American politics. This is not what I personally believe regarding abortion, but it's not like Baumberger came to his conclusion irrationally. Instagram deleted our post and threatened to restrict or disable our account if we violated their guidelines again, said Baumberger. The meme wasn't threatening violence, it denounced racial violence no matter the era. But the titans of tolerance have no interest in the truth. They can delete our posts and even our account, but they can't delete the truth. And of course, there was no due process, no appeal process, no one to reach to correct this injustice. There was no option other than to click OK and the purge was complete. And here's the meme in question. Regardless of how you feel about abortion, should this image have been censored off Instagram? The numbers it cites are accurate. You may disagree with the framing of the data, you may think that aborted fetuses don't count as murders, but that's a different discussion. Those numbers are accurate. And either way, should it have been censored? If Instagram were considered to be a child-centered network, then maybe, but that's not the case. Instagram already has a way to place what it calls sensitive content behind a blurry filter, so that if people want to see it, they have to opt in by tapping on the content itself. Instagram CEO Kevin Systrom stated in a blog post that while these posts don't violate our guidelines, someone in the community has reported them, and our review team has confirmed that they're sensitive. And that's honestly fine by me. It's not censorship. The posts are still visible, you just have to click them to see them. Let's check Instagram's guidelines to see if there's a line clearly drawn between sensitive content and completely banned content. Share only photos and videos that you've taken or have the right to share. That seems fair. Post photos and videos that are appropriate for a diverse audience. The heading for this section sounds like it might be bad, but it's entirely based around nudity. The diversity mentioned seems to be diversity of age. Foster meaningful and genuine interactions. Again, it's not a helpful header because the content of the rule only mentions spam. Follow the law, fine. Respect other members of the Instagram community. This is where the part on harassment and hate speech comes in, but Baumberger's meme didn't feature any of that. Maintain our supportive environment by not glorifying self-injury. I can only assume that Instagram model subculture has created the unfortunate side effect of anorexia promotion groups on the platform. Be thoughtful when posting newsworthy events. This pertains to violence. Don't post violent images even if they're from a newsworthy event. Baumberger's anti-abortion meme doesn't violate any of these rules. So why was it removed? Why wasn't it just placed behind a sensitive content wall? Is it because the people at Instagram disagree with his political stance? However, there is a silver lining when it comes to Instagram, and it involves SJWs shooting themselves in the foot. Remember in the last video when I said that the measures that the lefty CEOs of social media companies implement often end up hurting the rank-and-file SJWs on their side? Well, here's a great example of that from Vice. Users accuse Instagram of censoring hashtags about sex work and women. Instagram is reportedly hiding posts from some users under hashtags like women, strippers, female strippers, and sex workers' rights day, while hashtags like man and male strippers remain uncensored. Under the censored hashtags, The space where photos usually appear is replaced by text that reads, "Top posts from this hashtag are currently hidden because the community has reported some content that may not meet Instagram's community deadlines." Oh, really? Not so happy about censorship now, are you? I mean, you were all just perpetuating the male gaze or whatever other bullshit theoretical framework you use to justify censorship. So this is exactly what you wanted to happen. The truth is, the style of social justice that currently has its grip on the social media companies, as well as other segments of the political and cultural left, is an anti-sex, prudish stripe. They are Puritan in nature, believing that excessive displays of female sexuality only exist to serve the male gaze, and are ultimately oppressive in nature towards women. They've got more in common with conservative Christians or Islamists than the sex-positive, pro-sex worker, personal liberation feminists that have been affected by their policies. The Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act and the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act make websites liable for what users say and do on their platforms, causing platforms to preemptively shutter or censor forums or entire sites where sex trafficking could feasibly happen, including the Craigslist personal page. Even before the passing of these bills, sex workers overwhelmingly warned that they would do more harm than good, and now, sex workers are reporting the devastating effects, like being forced to return to dangerous pimps. You did it, social justice. You drove those problematic women, oppressing other women with their bodies and their sex work, back underground where they can no longer be seen. Social justice in action. I actually have little to no personal experience with Instagram in comparison to the other tech companies, so there's not really much more I can say. I just haven't been keeping my thumb on the pulse of this one, unfortunately. But I bet there's a lot more SJW BS out there, as far as Instagram is concerned. Apple was one of the companies that kicked Alex Jones off its platform without due cause, the event that kicked this whole thing off. Despite Facebook and Apple not always seeing eye to eye, it was Apple's move that motivated Mark Zuckerberg to act. As reported in the New York Times article, Facebook banned InfoWars, now what? Late Sunday, Apple, which has often tried to stake out moral high ground on contentious debates, removed InfoWars podcast from iTunes. After seeing the news, Mark Zuckerberg sent a note to his team confirming his own decision. The strikes against InfoWars and Mr. Jones would count individually, and the pages would come down. The announcement arrived at 3 a.m. Pacific time. But like I said, Facebook and Apple do not always see eye to eye. While Facebook lost nearly everybody's personal information to Cambridge Analytica, Apple is significantly more stringent with its privacy policies. Apple's CEO Tim Cook even took a pot shot at Zuckerberg, stating on MSNBC that if it were him, he wouldn't have let things get so bad.
Really so Mark Zuckerberg, what would you do?
What would I do? I wouldn't be in this situation.
Look at this guy's face. That's a shit-eating grin if I ever saw one. Apple's stricter stance on privacy has even led them to clash with the US government. An iPhone owned by one of the San Bernardino shooters was recovered by the FBI, and Apple refused to assist the FBI in decrypting it, citing privacy concerns. This actually kicked off a legal battle between the FBI and Apple, with the government requesting Apple supply them with a backdoor to the phone, using a 1977 ruling on the All Writs Act as a precedent. The bit of law in question allowed the government to compel technical assistance from private phone companies in accessing call records. Apple's counter-argument is that while a phone company may compile call records in the normal course of its business, Apple did not regularly unlock people's phones as a normal course of its business, and forcing Apple's software engineers to create new code to do the job would be considered a violation of the First Amendment as compelled speech, since programming code was ruled to be free speech in Bernstein v. United States in 1996. So we can all rest easy, knowing that even in the face of overwhelming government pressure, Apple will not bend and won't give up all of our private info. Apple iCloud data in China now stored by state-owned company. Apple officially moves its Chinese iCloud operations and encryption keys to China. Oh, so when it's the American government asking for one person's data, fuck you, we take a stand. But when it's the Chinese government asking for everyone's data, of course, they're trustworthy. Give them the cloud data, give them the encryption keys, give them everything. Oh, China's decided to purge 25,000 apps from the Apple Store? It's okay, they didn't need their free speech, don't worry about it. Of course, we all know why Apple bends over backward for the Chinese government. Apple makes all their shit in China, marks it up and sells it in the West. Everybody knows that Apple stuff is overpriced garbage that appeals to rich city hipsters, and that the regular Chinese working person suffers greatly to make it for those rich city hipsters. Labor and health violations rampant at Apple supplier in China. An investigation by China Labor Watch has discovered violations related to occupational health and safety, pollution, and work schedules. An episode of toxic gas poisoning also occurred at the Catcher factory in May 2017. Workers interviewed revealed toxic gas sent 90 people to the hospital, with 5 needing intensive care. Apple conducted its own internal investigation after the violations were reported and found no abuses. Well, of course you didn't. It's not like these companies have had to install nets in order to prevent the deaths of people who jump off their buildings hoping to commit suicide. Apple's a fucking saint of a company for sure. I know, I'm getting off track here. I've got no love for companies that exploit the labor of the third world. But when they turn around, try to upsell us their garbage, and then chastise and rebuke us with some sort of a moral argument, they can fuck right off. They don't have a goddamn leg to stand on. Fuck Silicon Valley. It's run by a bunch of social justice hypocrites who will virtue signal one thing and then do the complete opposite.